How are we doing, everyone? Welcome to the Blitz podcast. My name is Omar. I'm with Abdul, and we got a great show for you guys today.
Today, we're going to be summarizing the Chicago Bears free agency for 2021 so far. We're going to be talking about their acquisitions. We're going to be talking about who they lost. We're going to be talking about the quarterback position and its future in Chicago. And we're also going to be talking about the positions that still need to be filled.
All right, well, let's get started.
To start off, we're going to be starting off with March 3rd, which is one of the early days of free agency. The Chicago Bears re-signed Alex Bars, J.P. Holtz, Ryan Nall, James Waters, and Josh Woods to contract extensions.
Solid depth for us. Most of it was in the offensive side with Alex Barnes, GP Holtz, and Ryan Nall. They're very good depth for us. Of course, Ryan Nall will most likely be in the practice squad with the acquisitions we got in the running back room. Alex Bars was a good guard for us in the second half of the season. He did really well. JP Holtz is a very good blocking tight end for us. He'll do very well too, and is a solid special teams player. Josh Woods and James Waters were very good depth when we had injuries in that linebacker room. So they came in, they performed well for what they could do. Josh Woods, of course, had some struggles towards the end, but he, he's a second, third string, so depth is depth, and he's pretty good for us.
I think all of these signings are pretty much great for depth. Even Alex Bars, who could be on the starting line come next year. Alex Bars, he stepped up in the second half of the season when we really needed him, when the O-line was going through several different combinations. Ryan Nall and James Waters, they might not get significant play time. As we see, Ryan Nall didn't get much play time when the running back room was very thin last year. And we're going to touch upon that later, but I think that Josh Woods, all of these signings altogether are just great for depth at each specific position with James Waters and Josh Woods at the linebacker position. I think that they're solid for depth, and we're going to need them next year.
Yeah, I agree.
So on March 4th, we placed a franchise tag on wide receiver Allen Robinson II.
I was very happy we did this since we did it last minute. It was right before the deadline. I honestly thought we weren't going to do it, but I was very happy when I saw the tweet when it came out. He's very good for us in the wide receiver room. Very good veteran presence. He's just the leader in that area. He's one of our best offensive pieces. Actually, he is our best offensive piece. He can just catch anything. He bails out the quarterbacks with our bad offensive quarterback play. So he's just amazing for us. He's going to do really well.
Of course, I think that I would have liked an extension, and we can talk about that later, but I think that placing the franchise tag on him was great because he gets paid, he gets another year in Chicago, and having him in the room, just even the veteran presence, as you said, to help Darnell Mooney, and also him being one of the best offensive threats in the league, especially on the Chicago Bears, who don't have much of an offense. I think that he's going to be great next year. He's very, very underrated as he's a top 10 wide receiver, but you could argue him as a top 5 wide receiver. But the things that he's done in Chicago with the significantly undervalued or the not good quarterback play in Chicago, he's done miles with it. He's had 1,000-yard seasons every single year that he's been here for the past 3 years, and he's been insane for the offense. He is the core piece of the offense, and to have him for another year, I'm excited.
And then you also have to remember when he was with the Jaguars, he had a 1,400-yard season with Blake Bortles, who was also not a very good quarterback. And a lot of people like to put a lot of blame on him for the season for some of the interceptions. Since for the contested catches, he would kind of hand it off for like a couple of the interceptions. But people just focus on that bad side, don't realize the amount of good he does for our team and the amount of interceptions that would have happened if he didn't win those contested catches.
Of course, people only like to focus on the negative. That happened a couple times in the year, and that's something to think about. But I don't think that that's major when you're regarding someone who's dropping 1,250 yards with terrible quarterback play. He is one of the best players in the league, and I'm glad that we have him next year.
Oh yeah, for a fact.
On March 7th, we re-signed kicker Cairo Santos to a 3-year deal for $60 million. What do you think about that?
I thought it was very good for us. I mean, we have had a kicking pro for how long? Ever since Robbie Gold came out, this guy came in, just knocked one after another. I mean, when he first missed that first field goal earlier in the season, everyone had their doubts. We won Eddie Pinheiro back, but then he comes back in, just knocks them all down. So without a doubt, he's just amazing for us. We do have that curse that after we pay our kicker, that they're just gonna do bad. I know you like to talk about that, so
Oh, well, yeah, I swear. When we pay the kicker, that they just go on a decline. But Kairos was amazing last year. He was knocking stuff down from 45. He's knocking stuff down from 50, and it's really nice when you don't have the anxiety to watch your kicker kick from that type of distance. He scored 126 points for us. He went 94% from field goal. He was a demon last year, and I'm so happy that we don't have to worry about this position. And special teamers, he was locked up. A couple others, Scales, the whole special teams unit is coming back next year, so I'm happy about that.
Oh yeah. Oh, of course. I mean, our special teams was very good, so that's a very good signing. On March 11th, we extended Mario Edwards to a 3 years, $11 million deal. So, what do you think about that?
I think that that's great for the depth, and we could talk about how we lost some players on the defensive line later on. But I think that Mario Edwards had a great year. He had, I think it was about 4 sacks. He had that one big game against the Texans. I remember. There's a little bit of concern with him. I know that he's fighting a domestic abuse case right now in Carolina, so that's a little bit of concern. But I think that overall, this is a great signing, given the skill and the need for a player like this on the defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, we can leave politics with politics when we're talking about players, how they act on the field and how they play on the field. Mario Edwards did very good for us coming in, especially when Akeem Hicks got injured and Robert Quinn wasn't performing in how he was. And also, we didn't have Eddie Goldman, so then we had Bilal Nichols and Mario Edwards come in for some of the games. They had to kind of command that defensive line, and they were doing very well for us, especially Mario Edwards. So he's a very good signing for us. I'm very happy we have him.
All right, here comes the kicker. On March 12th, we signed quarterback Andy Dalton to a 1 year, $10 million contract. What do you think about that?
So I don't hate Andy Dalton. I think he is was a solid quarterback. I don't think he's much of a solid quarterback right now. I think we paid him a little bit too much. $10 million is a lot, especially when we could have had somebody like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who I think is better than Andy Dalton by not, I wouldn't say a large margin, but by a margin. Um, he'll be a very good veteran presence for us. From what I've heard, he's a very good leader when he was with the Bengals and with the season with the Cowboys. So he was a three-time Pro Bowler with the Bengals. So hopefully he can kind of bring back those instincts. I mean, he has his old coach back, Bill Lazor. So we'll see what happens. I think what's going to happen is that we're going to trade up during the draft. We'll talk about more in the future podcast about the draft. But I think we're going to trade up for a young quarterback in the draft, and he's sort of going to be that mentor. But I don't know. I wasn't excited when I saw the Andy Dalton signing. I was actually kind of furious. But after I kind of calmed down, it is what there's not that many quarterbacks that we could have gotten in the free agency. I feel like it was a little bit of an overpay, but um,
No, I
yeah,
agree.
yeah,
I thought it was a little bit of an overpay when you look at the market, but then you're seeing people like James get like $12 million. But I mean, James has more upside than Andy Dalton because of like the age difference, as well as the previous situation. Dalton, I don't completely hate it, just because I also think that we're going to trade up in the draft and he's going to be sort of the mentor, which we can talk about that later. But last year, he threw for 2,170 yards, 14 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and an 87.3 rating. And this was in about, I think it was, he played 11 games because Dak got injured 5 games in. And he was forced in a starting position. He didn't have an off season because of COVID protocol. He didn't have much experience with the team. He was forced into this situation in mid game, really, and
yeah.
he ended up winning that game. I think that the ratings don't really show how he was as a player last year. If you look at, I know PFF is only really good with offensive line when we're talking about offensive line, and they gave the
Honestly,
Cowboys.
I don't trust PFF for anything.
PFF's not great, but when you're looking at offensive line, like what else are you supposed to look at? Like what other metric do you have? PFF
That's
gave
true.
him a 27, and I think that's honestly being nice to them. Watching them play last year, he had no time to throw the ball. You can even look at the Washington game when if you look up the video, every pass from the Cowboys Washington game, he had no time. His receivers, which are very good, it's top
Yeah,
three receiver unit at the Cowboys last year, but they were dropping balls. He had no offensive line help, and I think that our offensive line this year will be pretty decent. I don't think it's going to be amazing, but I think that if they give Andy Dalton enough time to throw the ball, that he could be okay. I'm not expecting very much out of it. I'm thinking maybe quarterback 20 to 24, that sort of range. Hopefully, that's being hopeful. I think that also you touched upon Bill Lazor saying that he has a connection with Bill Lazor. I saw this one stat that he was about 31 touchdowns and 9 interceptions when Bill Lazor was his offensive coordinator. That gets me that makes me hopeful, I guess. But I think that overall he will be. This might be another Mike Glennon when you think about it. A couple of years ago, where Mike Glennon is number one. Mike Glennon is number one. Where they say they even tweeted out a picture of Andy Dalton and they just said QB1. I don't know why they're doing that, but I think this is another Mike Glennon 2.0.
I'm gonna stop you right there when you talk about comparing him to Mike Lennon because him being Mike Lennon is a whole different thing. Mike Lennon was a backup QB who flashed for a few games, and then people thought he was just gonna be a genie, like one of the best quarterbacks. I
I'm
mean,
saying like the situation, like he's going to play a couple
yeah,
games and then the rookie will come in.
but he's a starting caliber quarterback still in the NFL. He started many years in the NFL. He's proven himself in the NFL to be a decent quarterback. I think he will start most of the season if he doesn't get injured, and the rookie will come in. If we draft the rookie, he will come in towards the end of the season, type of thing. But I think you can't really compare this to Mike Lennon. Andy Dalton's a much better quarterback than Mike Lennon was. I mean, when you watch those Mike Lennon games back then, it was just awful. He was just punting balls as soon as he was hiking it. So we were all happy that Mitchell Trubisky came in, and obviously we saw what happened with Mitchell Trubisky. Um, we just want Dalton to kind of just be an average quarterback at best for us. We're not really expecting much out of him. I think he'll probably just be like I think honestly his high point is probably just being the 20th best quarterback.
Yeah,
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 I mean if
exactly.
you can reach that point, that's
I'll
I'm
be
gonna say
so
that's solid for
happy.
us.
That would
Yeah,
be
that's
amazing.
and that's kind of sad discussing about having just a top 20 quarterback or just the 20th ranked quarterback. But hopefully he'll probably be more solid than Nick Foles was. He is a little bit more agile than Nick Foles was, except he doesn't have the athletic ability Mitchell Trubisky does, but he can kind of pass a little bit
He can
better.
read a defense as well, which
Yeah,
is
he can read a
what's gonna be good.
defense. He kind of does have some bad decision making, but other than that, I'm not really too happy about the signing. But it is what it is. We couldn't really do much with what we had. I would have rather we signed Ryan Fitzpatrick because I mean that dude just fun to watch. Even if we do bad, I would enjoy watching Bears games, as I think many would. As you said, he did do decent under Bill Lazor. Decent. Hopefully, he could do decent with us again, but I'm not gonna give it too high hopes. He did throw a decent amount of interceptions too with the touchdown. So
Hmm.
we'll see what happens. He is 33 years old, so he's getting to an old age.
I agree. To go on, this was the same day that we signed quarterback Eddie Dalton, or agreed to terms with him, March 12th. We signed offensive tackle Jermaine Ifedi. I think he was okay last year. I'm not very this way hot or cold about this. I
I'm not really. I'm not. I'm not. I don't really. Jermaine Ifedi is just a backup
Yeah,
in whatever team he plays. I don't think he's that solid of a defensive lineman. He makes a lot of mistakes. He'll hold somebody off like once every like dozen plays. So he's definitely not the starting lineman that we want. I would rather us trying to reach out for one free agency or try to draft one during the draft. But we'll see what happens there. So we also got Dion Bush to come back with us for a 1 year deal. I think Dion Bush will be a solid depth piece for us as well in the safety position.
100%. I think that we don't have our starting strong safety, which we can talk about that later. I think that we don't have our strong safety starting in Dion Bush. I think he's more for special teams, but I think that signing him for a very cheap deal as it was solid for depth. On
Yeah.
that next day, or not the next day, on March 15th, we signed cornerback Desmond Trufant to a 1 year deal.
Yeah, so Desmond Trufant is obviously going to be our cornerback one in replacement for Kyle Fuller, but for how long? I mean, we got Jalen Johnson who broke out his rookie year and he did really well for us, and we had Desmond Trufant who was with the Lions. He was out due to injury for a few games. He did decent for when he was in, but when you look at his stats compared to Jalen Johnson's, it looks like Jalen Johnson's pass deflected was higher. It just looks like Jalen Johnson did a little bit better. So I think Jalen Johnson will take over that cornerback one position. I think Desmond Trufant is a solid sign for us for the price, especially when compared to Kyle Fuller's contract. But he has to step into Kyle Fuller's shoes, and that's just not going to happen because Kyle Fuller was as great of a cornerback as a cornerback can be. He was just great lockdown. But Jalen Johnson's definitely stepping up there. I think Jalen Johnson will be our cornerback one. Desmond Trufant will be our cornerback one for a few games, but then he's just going to go back to the cornerback two position. We'll see how Sean Desai wants to do with it. I'm going to be our new. He's going to test out the defense how he wants. I'll trust Sean Desai for right now, as people are giving him the hype, such as like Akeem Hicks, saying he's going to be the new Vic Fangio for us. So we'll see what happens.
I agree. I think that he won't be the cornerback one for too long. We saw that Jalen Johnson, he recently went on a podcast for Utah football, and he talked about how excited he was to step into the cornerback one role. So, him saying that, and just knowing from a fact that Jalen Johnson is probably very biased, but saying that he was the best rookie cornerback, he's going to be a star. So seeing that he was going to go into the cornerback one role soon is not very crazy thinking, but the question is how long. Desmond Trufant, he didn't have a great year last year, but when you think about the defensive unit that he was working with, it was the Lions. The Lions have not had a great defensive unit in how long? They were, I believe, they were last ranked last year. So you're going to understand, you got to understand that if someone's having a terrible year, you have to look at other perspectives. You have to look at other factors going in. You have to look at was he getting any help? You have to get on was the team was a losing team. The team didn't have a winning mentality. So I think that he won't have a crazy year. I think he'll have an okay year. But looking at the price, paying him $1 to $2 million. Looking at that price, I think that it was a great signing.
Yeah, I think it was a solid signing as well. But I mean, he's not going to be our cornerback one. I mean, when you look at it, he's 30 years old. He's aging. He just getting some injuries. You know, when worst comes to worst, he'll probably be out for like half the season. If not, I don't want to jinx it, but he could be out for like the full season. We're gonna need those cornerbacks to step up. He is an aging cornerback. He is solid for us, but he is not gonna be our future. I was looking at something. I stumbled upon something where it said the Chicago Bears had one of the oldest rosters in the NFL. And when we're looking at these signings, I mean, Andy Dalton's 33. Angelo Blackson, we're gonna be talking about him. He's 28. We're going to be talking about Christian Jones. He's 30. Desmond Trufant is 30. We're going to be talking about other people. They're all 28 and up. They're all old people. We need more young talent to come out. So we have Jalen Johnson, but these guys are not. When we're going to be talking about the future, yeah, they'll be good for right now, but they're also old. I mean, we're not. Injuries are not like new to us. We have injuries all the time, but we also have a lot of just veterans and old people on our team. Akeem Hicks gets injured a lot. We got Danny Trevathan who got injured a lot. Kyle Fuller, he didn't really get injured, but I mean, with him and Jalen Johnson, I mean, Kyle Fuller's still young, but now we got somebody, a cornerback. If you were to fall down, we got Jalen Johnson, but who else in that cornerback position? So we're going to be talking more about that too. So, and
No, I
that,
agree. I saw that same I saw that same statistic where we are the second oldest. I believe it was the Falcons that were number one. Our average is almost 27 years old, which is kind of crazy to think about when you think of the average career of an NFL player. We're definitely on the older side. We need to focus on building up the young core, which we've seen in Jalen Johnson, Darnell Mooney, Bilal Nichols. We have a great young core, but we need to add on to it, and we need to address that in the draft. For sure. But
yeah,
on
I
that
agree.
same day, we signed defensive end Angelo Blackson. I think this is a solid depth signing, as we've said before. He was a former Cardinal. He had 2.5 sacks, and this is great defensive line depth because we've lost a couple of the players.
Yeah, I mean, he's just going to be kind of our Brent Urban replacement. And Roy Robertson Harris. He's just going to take that spot. He's going to be solid depth for us. So I have that he had 8 QB hits, which is not bad as a depth defensive tackle. He had 24 tackles. He's somewhat decent against the run. So he's just going to be a solid depth signing. I'm kind of happy we have him. Of course, I do miss Brent Urban and Roy Robertson Harris. They were dogs for us as well. But they got their new futures with them. They got the bag, so they're doing well. Angelo Blackson, definitely a good signing with us. So yeah, we'll just see how it goes on from there.
On March 16th, we signed offensive linebacker Jeremiah Ataochu to a 2-year contract. I think this is great for depth. We've seen he had 5.5 sacks in just 11 games. He's a great rotational player. I've been seeing all these good things said about him, and you know that we didn't have great offensive linebacker play last year with Robert Quinn. So to have him to sub in every couple of plays to be that playmaker, be that rotational player would be great.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to be better than Robert Quinn. I mean, if Robert Quinn plays like how he did last year, I'm he's going to take that starting spot 100%. Jeremy Atacho, he's 28 years old. He had 5 sacks in 13 games, one forced fumble, 31 tackles. So I mean, when you compare that to Robert Quinn's, he had what, like 1 sack for
He
seven
had he had
15 games,
it
or
was
two
two
sacks.
it was two
Yeah,
sacks,
it's
but
two sacks.
did the first one of the Giants game count? So yeah, that
The,
was
I,
one.
I would say the first one counts. I think the second one was more of a pity sack, honestly.
Hmm.
I don't think he deserved that sack, but yeah, he's just gonna take over. I think that man's a dog as well. He's gonna do well for us. Opposite of Mac, he does need some help. Khalil Mack has just been doing that defense by himself, him and Akeem Hicks, but he needs somebody on the opposite side that can help him out, and hopefully he comes in and he can do that for us.
On March 18th, we signed offensive tackle Elijah Wilkinson on a 1 year deal. I don't know what to say about this. I've been seeing a couple of reports, or I've been looking up information about him, and he seems like a decent addition to the offensive line because we don't have much depth, and we definitely need it. Also talk about how we need to go offensive tackle in the draft or something. It's very clear that the offensive tackle position wasn't a bright spot in the offense last year. So signing him, I think it's okay, but I've been hearing a lot of reports. People compared him to the Rashad Coward
I was
of the Denver Broncos.
I was gonna say I think he's gonna be our new Rashad Coward.
I hope
I'm
not.
not. I wasn't really too happy with the signing. Hopefully he's just gonna be like practice squad slash very last depth
Hmm.
for our roster. So I'm not really too excited about that. I really don't want another Rashad Coward on the team. That hurt us so much. But we can just move on from that. So we can just put it in existence that he's gonna be a practice squad member, unless he's gonna be amazing for us. But I mean, I'm not. I don't really have too high hopes.
Yeah, me neither. On that same day, we signed linebacker Christian Jones to a 1 year deal. And this is not a new face. We've seen him before. He was in Chicago not too long ago. And I think this is great for linebacker depth because we saw at the end of last year, we saw Roquan go down. And Roquan is arguably the best player on the defense last year. Having him go down is insane. We saw Manti Te'o, Josh Woods try to fill his role in the Saints playoff game, and they could not fulfill expectations. So adding to the linebacker depth is great because we don't know how long, or we don't know, injuries can occur. We don't know when they're going to happen. And also to give maybe a little bit of a break to Roquan, who's on the field 24/7, I think it's a decent signing.
And I mean, we have injuries often. I mean, we have Trevathan, who gets injured almost every season that we have him, that we've had him. We definitely need depth. He's a very solid depth. He was solid for us before, when he was with the Chicago, and he was solid last year. He had 57 tackles, which is not bad. I mean, he's not going to be like our starting linebacker Rook One is, so he's not going to have an amazing year in the previous years. But yeah, he's solid depth, and I'm kind of happy with the signing because Monteteo, uh, Josh Woods, Iggy, they tried to step into Roquan's shoes. It didn't work out. They kept getting targeted. It was just blown coverages everywhere. I remember that blown coverage with Josh Woods in the Packers game. I think it was where they threw him. It was just
Oh,
horrible. He just like lost the fullback.
mhm.
It was either the fullback or the tight end where he lost him. He just looked like a lost child. But so hopefully he comes in, he can bring in that veteran presence. He's 30 years old also. So he is old, but hopefully he can bring in just like that veteran leadership for us for that depth.
Agreed. On March 19th, we signed running back Damian Williams. Playoff Damian is what they like to call him. I think that this is a great signing. We struggled at running back depth last year, and it wasn't too great. We had Tariq Cohen go down very early on in the year. We had Monty being the pretty much bell cow of the team, and we had Cordell Patterson, who hasn't stepped into this role, step into the running back role, taking a couple of carries sometimes. So to have him, especially this caliber of a player who Matt Nagy knows, is insane, and especially at the price we got him for such a cheap price.
Yeah, and I'm kind of happy you won't be seeing any more 4th and 1 with Cordero Pattersons. I'd much rather see 4th and 1 with Damien Williams, as he's actually a proven running back who can push that pile. So how I think it'll affect the workload of the running backs is that I don't think it'll take much out of Monty's workload. I think it might take more out of Tariq Cohen's workload. As for carries, because I think Tariq Cohen will be more focused on sort of that receiving back type of thing. But Damien Williams didn't do bad. He opted out last year, of course, because of COVID. But the year before, he was solid for the Chiefs. He had 711 total yards, 498 rushing, 213 receiving. So he can receive for us, and he can run the ball. So he'll be a solid second piece, 1-2 punch with um David Montgomery, with Tariq Cohen as well. I think we have a solid running back room. So I'm very happy with our running back backfield as of right now. Cordell Patterson wasn't able to fulfill that running back, that 1-2 punch with Montgomery, with as we wanted before, and Cordell Patterson couldn't really fulfill the receiving back that we wanted him as well. Of course, he had a couple of good flashy plays, but other than that, it was mostly just loss of yards.
Yeah, with Matt Nagy's offense, Cordell Patterson did not fit too well. Cordell is a great person, a great player, but
Mhm.
to force him into this sort of role, which is very unconventional for him, it wasn't too great seeing him on the field on 4th and 1 and seeing the passes to him, and he would just go down. So to have another running back, especially in very thin running back room last year, we now have so many running backs. We got Monty, Tariq Cohen, Damian Williams, and then we have sort of the practice squad players in Ryan Naw, Artavis Pierce. I think that we will be pretty good in that situation next year.
Yeah, I'm excited.
On March 20th, we re signed defensive back DeAndre Houston Carson to a 1 year deal.
I like this because DHC really saved us in a couple of games at the end. He had that pass deflected earlier in the season where he saved us on that game, especially against the Buccaneers, that Tom Brady game when he was covering Gronk, and then he batted that ball down. He's extremely good depth for us. I'm happy we did this. Of course, he's not starting caliber, but he's extremely solid depth. So yeah, this is a really good signing by us.
I think so too. On March 21st, we signed defensive back Artie Burns to a 1 year deal. And we had him last year for a year, but we didn't get to see any of him because he tore his ACL right before the season. And sometimes I think if he didn't tear his ACL, would we know that Jalen Johnson is the star that he is, because he pretty much took his role. Artie Burns was supposed to be opposite of Kyle Fuller for last year. I think that having him come back is another great signing for depth.
I think as long since we paid him cheap, yeah, it's good signing for depth. Artie Burns didn't really perform that well when he was with the Steelers. A lot of the Steelers fans were happy he was gone, as they think he cost them a lot of blown coverages, as a lot of people targeted him. Hopefully, if they can use him in that nickelback position, they can kind of just mold him. Since Buster Screen's gone, we need somebody to work in that position. We have that rookie last year. I can't remember his name. Who went into that nickelback position? Kindle Vildor.
Kendall
Kindle
Vildor, yeah.
Vildor. So Kindle Vildor did somewhat decent in that nickelback position, but he got kind of blown as well. So hopefully him and it sort of brings a competition towards practice to see who could be the better cornerback, and it'll help us out. But I don't really have high hopes for him either. He did tear his ACL last year, so he could be injury prone now. Because I mean, ACL tears are brutal. So coming back from that, it could affect him. It could affect him a lot.
Of course. And now for the most recent signing by the Bears, the Chicago Bears signed Marquise Goodwin, wide receiver, to a 1 year deal. I think that this is pretty good. I wouldn't say that it's amazing, given that he's not a very flashy player, but he's pretty good for the depth. He opted out of the 2020 season. He's an 8 year veteran. He played his first couple of years with the Buffalo Bills, and most recently he played with the San Francisco 49ers. At his peak, he had a career high 962 yards in San Francisco. And looking at the quarterback play, it's Jimmy Garoppolo. So having 962 yards, Jimmy Garoppolo is okay, or no, it's great for that, obviously. But looking at, he's probably gonna have similar quarterback play in Chicago. So
Yeah.
to see that, I think this is a great signing for depth. Also, Anthony Miller is probably going to get traded because of this. What do you
Thank
think?
God. Yeah, I don't really like Anthony Miller. Anthony Miller definitely has potential. He has the athletic ability. As we could be seen that he has hands. He can catch some crazy passes, but also he drops a lot of balls. He's very immature. He likes to think highly of himself. He thinks he's the best wide receiver in our thing in our wide receiver group. He had problems with Nagy, which is a problem since he is the head coach. And for somebody who doesn't really do that much for us in that wide receiving group, uh, Yeah, I mean, we can trade him. I'm kind of happy we do trade him. I think he's going to be bad for the locker room if we do keep him. I think he's
Hmm.
going to be bad for our wide receiver depth if we do keep him. I'm happy we have Darnell Mooney to take over his position as wide receiver two. Marquise Goodwin's going to be a solid wide receiver three for us. As you said, he wasn't that flashy. He had every one out of like 5 games, he'll have a just a bomb caught for like 70 yards for a touchdown, but then he's invisible for the rest. He didn't have that many good years. He had just that one good year with 162 whatever yards with San Francisco, and that was 3 years ago too. So that was a while ago. I think it'll be good wide receiver three signing. We do have a lot of speedsters now on the team. I think that's what Nagy wanted in his offense. Mooney and Marquise Goodwin will be a solid just downfield threat, but I don't know how he will perform since he is kind of just in that he I mean he hasn't played in a while.
Hmm.
It's been
That is definitely a
years
little
since
bit of
yeah.
concern.
So we don't know if he's gonna be rusty. He's gonna have that speed that he once had. Um but I like it. For the price, I like it. I think it's a solid signing.
Me too. Now we got to talk about the Bears free agency losses. And the first one we're going to talk about is Trubisky, as the Chicago Bears decided to not pick up his fifth-year option. I think that this is good, as both sides needed a fresh start. I love
Yep.
Trubisky, but he wasn't giving enough to the team, and the team had to move on. They both needed a fresh start. He signed with the Buffalo Bills on a one-year, $2.5 million contract, and I think that this is great. This is great for him. I've heard allegations or that he was going to sign with the Denver Broncos and compete with a starting job with what's his name, Drew Lock.
Drew Luck.
Yeah, I heard about that. I don't know if there's any merit to that, but I think that he went to Buffalo because look what they've done with Josh Allen. Josh Allen was not that good his rookie year. His sophomore year, he leveled up, and then last year he was an MVP candidate, albeit like 3 or 4. He was Josh Allen was great last year, and so if he can go to Buffalo and they can help him fix his mechanics, that'll be great for his career because he's going to head into the free agency market a year from now. So I wish him the best, but I think that losing him was great.
Yeah, I think it was definitely good that we parted ways with him. He wasn't working out with us. He's very athletic, but it just wasn't working out with the system that we wanted, especially Nagy's system. I think Nagy's kind of picky as a coach with what he wants from quarterbacks. But I mean, when you look at Mitchell Trubisky, he can't pass accurately. We gave him the opportunities when he came back after Nick Foles failed. He he looked good against bad defenses, but when he's versing like somewhat decent defenses, or I mean, like Green Bay wasn't even that good of a defense. They had like kind of like an average defense, but he was struggling with them as well. So he needs to learn. Yeah, I think him being in Buffalo will be really good. Him being mentored by the coaches over there will be really good. If he were to, him going to the Broncos, I think would just been another Nick Foles, Mitchell Trubisky, QB carousal. I don't think it would have went really well. I do wish him the best. He's a really good person, very athletic, not very good passer. But I do wish him the best. So we'll see what happens with him in the future. I'm definitely gonna keep checking up on him and see how he does.
Of course. The next free agency loss was Rashad Coward, offensive tackle. I think that this was amazing. What do you think?
Yeah. So I really don't know why we signed a traffic cone to play offensive line for us. He just a horrible offensive lineman. I don't know why you want to convert practice squad defensive tackle into offensive lineman, and then seeing how it not working and then just keeping him in makes sense. But for some reason, Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace thought it made sense and they kept it. Um, so he's just horrible for us. He got signed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know how. I don't know why.
And it
I
was a
think
couple years too.
that's a huge mistake. I mean, the dude is just awful. He couldn't. I don't think he was able to just block anyone once. It was a
What's hilarious is how
horrible.
the news came out when on Reddit because
Oh yeah,
his girlfriend was playing Call of Duty and then you could hear him talking business in the background. That
yeah.
was
Playing Call of Duty
hilarious.
Warzone. Yeah, that's a. I mean, I think that's the best part of just Coward's career. That's what he's going to be highlighted for, besides being just,
Getting
you
leaked
know,
on Call of Duty.
yeah,
That's the highlight of his
yeah,
career. I
yeah.
don't know what Pittsburgh is really doing as their offensive line is aging and they need protection for Big Ben or whoever's going to be
I
quarterback in the future.
I think they just want to end Big Ben's career for good.
They want him
They just want
gone
to, yeah, they want him gone. That's the only reason, the only thing that makes sense.
for real. All right, now for the kicker, this is terrible, but losing Kyle Fuller was the worst move of the offseason by a mile.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at we have Jimmy Graham with that crazy contract. We signed Andy Dalton to that crazy contract. I mean, we could have managed the cap to keep Fuller. I mean, Fuller is just one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. I don't know why we didn't keep him. Extremely good person for us. Extremely good leader. Everyone was talking in the locker room on how he would just one of the best films to study. Khalil Mack and Eddie Jackson would look up to him to study film. He was a great leader for Jalen Johnson. I mean, he was amazing for us. And I mean,
He was, and you got to
it,
watch him grow when we
yeah, we got
drafted
to
him.
watch him grow. I mean, I remember when people thought he was bad, and then people were thinking about us cutting him early on in the season, and he comes out and has that amazing year. And he's just been solid for us since. He's just a lockdown corner. He's everything we want in a corner. So yeah, it's definitely sad that we saw him go. I really wish we could have kept him. I wish him the best. He's reunited with Vic Fangio, which honestly is just I like it. I like it a lot. He's
Of course.
back to his coach. Yeah, so he's gonna ball out there as he should.
Hmm.
And yeah, I miss him, man. I mean, he's
I
just a great
miss him
corner for
too.
us.
I mean, like you said, it's happy to see him reunite with Fangio. Glad that it wasn't the Packers because you saw that the Packers needed a cornerback this season,
Yeah,
and a
yeah,
couple of years ago they tried to sign him, and we said no to that. So to see him reunite with Fangio is nice, but losing him is so bad. Losing him, no, his role is being fulfilled by Desmond Trufant, and the skill gap between both of them is insane.
massive.
Kyle Fuller is one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and then it's also concerning when you look at the several contracts that we have on our balance. We have Jimmy Graham. If we cut him, that's $7 million. Andy Dalton signing him, that's $10 million. That's $17 million right there. His cap hit is $20 million for the year. That's two people that we don't really need for one core player. And this is all due to Pace mismanaging the cap. In
Yeah,
2019, he decided to give him he started to restructure Kyle Fuller's contract. You only restructure when you think that they're going to be with the team for the next couple of years.
yeah.
And him mismanaging the contract shows the flaws in him as a general manager. And I'm kind of concerned about this because you look at Jalen Johnson's development, you look at the defense as a whole, as a unit. You've seen Kyle Fuller's impact in bold when you see plays like in the Buccaneers game when he gets the forced fumble. He's not very flashy. He's very skilled, and him as a player, his ceiling is high and his floor is pretty high as well. He's such a consistent player. So to lose him is terrible. I'm hoping that Jalen Johnson steps into the role as a star soon. That's why I'm not like crying 24/7 about this. I'm very sad that Kyle Fuller's gone, but I think that there's still hope in the secondary, especially with Sean Desai being a safeties coach and becoming the defensive coordinator. I still have a little bit of hope, but this was just such terrible cap mismanagement.
I mean, when you think about it, what are the Bears doing right now? We're in a win now mode. We need
Mhm.
win now players. Kyle Fuller was a win now player. You want somebody who can lock up their wide receiver ones. You want somebody that can go up against like a Julio Jones. I mean, you can't lock up Julio Jones almost every play, but he could do better than
Yeah,
almost
he's
any other
great.
cornerback. He's what you want to do if you want to win. So it was definitely just bad for Ryan Pace, especially with him being in the hot seat. He needs to win for us, and I think Kyle Fuller was a big piece for him, and that was a huge mistake letting him go.
That's what I don't understand with Jimmy Graham is not a win now player. You saw Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham was great last year. He was pretty good last year, especially in the red zone. But you
Yeah,
see that we have Cole Kmet. We drafted him in the second round for a reason. You have to
yeah,
give Cole Kmet those snaps. So him, that's $7 million off the book. You look at Andy Dalton. If the Bears are if the Bears are gonna do what we think they're gonna do and draft a rookie quarterback, why wouldn't we have Nick Foles sit and teach him? Nick Foles is a Super Bowl MVP. Nick Foles would be a pretty decent mentor. So to look at that and signing Andy Dalton, I don't think that's terrible. I think we just settled. But looking at the cap mismanagement, it was just very depressing. And I wish Fuller the best in Denver, but I think that this was one of the worst free agency losses that the Bears have had in a long time.
yeah. I mean, like you said, I mean, we could have just managed Jimmy Graham. I mean, Jimmy Graham is an overpaid tight end for us, even though he did make one of the most memorable plays in my opinion, for last season in the Saints game. At the very end,
When he
we had the
ran at
one
the
handed,
back,
yeah, we had the one-handed catch for the touchdown. They just walked off the field. They just walked off in the locker room. I thought that just summarized the season perfectly. But yeah, he's definitely just an overpaid tight end, and if we
Hmm.
could have managed our cap better, we could have kept Fuller. We would have still had that solid defense, and we don't know how it's going to impact that backfield, like you said. So hopefully Sean Desai can just work his magic, do like how a Vic Fangio would do, and just create that solid backfield for us.
Of course. The next free agency loss that I'd like to focus on is Cordell Patterson, and this recently happened within the past couple of days. You saw that he was tweeting on April Fools, like 2 weeks ago. He was tweeting, "Oh, I'm going to Minnesota, haha," and we knew that was an April Fools joke.
Yeah,
But Cordell Patterson, he embodied the Chicago Bear. He was one of the happiest players. He even made a Chicago Bears branded shirt of like saying "How about them Bears," which is like his new phrase.
yeah, it was iconic.
Yeah, he made a shirt about that even when he didn't have a contract extension. He loved being the Twitter GM when he would tweet out at players. You remember like Quinn in Spain when we needed offensive line help. You saw that he would tweet at. He even changed his profile picture for when we had the Russell Wilson stuff happening. So he was a great team player. Losing him, especially when you look at the contract that he was giving, it was a $3 million contract. The Bears could have paid that. When you look at all the other players, even if he's just a special teams player, he's the best returner in the league, or the best kick returner in the league. And to have that role missing, I don't know what we're gonna do at it. But what do you think?
I mean, he was just solid special teams player in general. I wish we could have kept him. Yeah, $3 million, but I think we could have paid that. When you look at him in the punt returns, also when he was when we were punting, my bad. When we were punting, he would be the first one there for the tackle. I mean, he was always there. Of course, he was just amazing locker room guy. Brought amazing energy. Had the "How about them Bears" thing. He had a lot of iconic parts in on Twitter. I mean, if you're a true Bears fan and you go on Twitter, you're following Cordell Patterson. You enjoyed watching what he tweets. I mean, it was fun to have him. It's very sad to see him go. Falcon. I think the Falcons got him. I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, they got a very solid piece in the Falcons like taking our special teams player. I mean, they got Devin Hester before, and now they got Cordero Patterson, so they're just stealing our good
It's history
players.
repeating itself.
Yeah, it's history repeating itself. But so yeah, I mean Cordero Patterson, I miss him too, man. It's just like Kyle Fuller.
It's
He just
sad.
yeah, it's sad for us. It's sad for us. So obviously we did get Damien Williams to fulfill that running back position for him. And then I'm guessing Marquise Goodwin fills that wide receiving position for him. But what are we gonna do about kick returns? I don't know.
Me
Would
neither.
Tariq Cohen go in? That'd be a lot of workload for Tariq Cohen if he has to do punt returns, kick returns, and he has to go on the offense. So I mean, we'll see what happens. Maybe that's why we got Damien Williams to just remove some of that load for Tariq Cohen, so we can focus a little bit more on special teams. But I mean, we'll see what happens.
Of course. The next free agency loss I'd like to talk about is Buster Screen. So he was the first casualty of the offseason. We
Yeah.
we cut him, and he originally replaced Bryce Callahan a couple of years ago at the nickelback position, and he still hasn't been signed. He struggled with injuries throughout the year. He had a concussion, and he couldn't get over it. He wasn't too great this year. Like you look at the Falcons game, not the Falcons. You look at the Vikings game, and you'd watch all the blown coverages. He was not great this year, and you saw players step into his role and do an okay job. So I think that him as a cap casualty, not a cap casualty, him cutting him was the right move, and I hope that he finds success with another team. But I think that this was the right move.
Yeah, I agree too. I think it was the right move cutting him. He was solid for us the first year when we got him. He didn't. I mean, he wasn't up to Bryce Callahan standards because Bryce Callahan was very good for us, and he's still very good with the Broncos under Vic Fangio. Um, but just that last year with us, it was just awful with him. All the quarterbacks targeted him. Always, they'd always put their best receivers on him because he would just get burned way too easily. Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. It was when they put Devontae Adams on Buster Screen, it was just completed pass every time to touchdown. It was hard to watch. So yeah, it's definitely a good thing that we dropped him. Hopefully he goes to another team and balls out. I mean, he's had a lot of injuries. He's an aging cornerback as well. So I think it'll just be solid depth for the future for another team.
Agreed. And now for our last two that I'd like to focus on, Roy Robertson Harris and Brent Urban. We saw that Roy Robertson Harris got the bag in Jacksonville. He got,
Yeah,
I think it was around $8 million a year, which I like because we get the
yeah, he
compensatory
deserves it.
pick. He, he
Yeah,
he deserves it. He was
he
good
deserves
last
it
year.
too. Yeah.
and to get that compensatory pick, which is about like a sixth round, is great. And then you see Brent Urban going down in Dallas. He's going to play with the Cowboys. I think that both those situations are pretty good for those players. I wish them the best, but I think that we've pretty much fulfilled those roles when we talk about how we signed Angelo Blackson, when we talk about how we extended Mario Edwards. I think that we focus on the defensive line with these losses, and I think that they'll be good next year.
Yeah, I think Roy Robertson Harris and Brent Urban are really good with us. I mean, they both brought that energy from the depth. They're going to be solid with Jacksonville and with the Cowboys. I wish them the best. But yeah, we did really fill those positions with Blackson and re-signing Mario Edwards, and then we got Atauchu to help on that end. So it's going to be solid for them to get the bag for where they want to go. I mean, Robertson Harris, I know is going to ball out in Jacksonville. He was very good for us. Brent Urban just solid depth wherever he goes. He's going to bring that energy. So yeah, I wish them the best in their teams.
Of course. All right, now we're going to be talking about possible quarterback trades. Now, the first name that I'd like to mention is Jimmy Garoppolo,
Hmm.
and when I hear that, ew, no,
Yeah, that's
I
not
do
happening.
not. Not if Pace offers to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, because obviously the San Francisco 49ers are going to get a quarterback. They traded this year's 12. They traded two more firsts in 2022 and 2023. They traded a couple of second and or third compensatory picks that they got from Robert Saleh leaving. They traded those. They traded a lot to move from 12 to 3. They're going to get a quarterback, and I believe it's going to be Justin Fields, maybe Mac Jones, but they're going to get a quarterback. And Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't see him starting the next 2 years fully for San Francisco. And if Pace offers a trade for this, he's gone. There's no
I
chance.
I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is even starting like half the season with the 49ers. I mean, they traded up to that third to pick supposedly Mac Jones. But no, Jimmy Garoppolo coming to us would be a horrible decision.
Terrible.
He's overpaid. I think he's not that much better than Mitchell Trubisky. We're gonna get the same result.
Hmm.
Dude always gets injured.
They're in the same
So
range, like
yeah,
25th quarterback. Like he's Jimmy Garoppolo is not a top 20 quarterback in the
and
league.
you have to remember that Jimmy Garoppolo's in a much better offensive system than
Oh, definitely. They
Mitchell
have some of the
Trubisky was
best
with
run
ours.
game.
So imagine Jimmy Garoppolo with us, he'd be just as good as Trubisky or even worse. I mean, I when I see him, he could throw like Nick Foles can, maybe on a all right day and with a little bit less mobility than Mitchell Trubisky. So comparing him with those two is not very good for us. So that's definitely just a no go.
Especially when you look at the cap hit and his base salary. Jimmy Garoppolo is getting paid 48 million dollars over the next 2 years. He's getting paid 24 million dollars a year for that quarterback play. If a quarterback, the only thing that you need to hear to summarize Jimmy Garoppolo is throwing 8 times in a championship game and
Yeah,
winning. That's the system that he's in. He's not, and he didn't even complete all 8 of those passes.
yeah,
He is not. He's not a great quarterback by any means. And looking at his cap hit, it's 27 million for the next 2 years. That is insane, and I don't think that the Bears can afford it. And if I don't think that this is a possibility, but if it happens, it's the worst situation.
yeah. So yeah, I hopefully it doesn't, but
No, I agree.
I don't think it's gonna happen to be honest.
Me neither.
So, moving on with the next possible QB trade, I'm going to bring up this controversial topic with Deshaun Watson.
Mhm.
It would be controversial a couple months ago, but with all these um, just political and lawsuits and everything going on
All
with
the
him.
allegations going on
Yeah,
with him.
allegations.
Hmm.
I don't know if Chicago really wants him because when you look at what's happening, I mean, over 20 allegations. People are coming out. They're showing their face now. They're saying this, and that. I don't know
Hmm.
if he's gonna even play in the NFL.
I don't see
So
him playing next. I don't know if his career is gone, but I don't see him playing next year. I mean, you saw that the Texans they got Tyrod Taylor. They're I feel like they're planning to not have Deshaun Watson next year. And the beginning of this whole honeymoon phase of thinking that Deshaun Watson is going to come to the Bears was really nice because
yeah,
you saw that he was having trouble in Houston because the team went 4 and they had only 4 wins last year. So seeing that, it would have been nice, especially given that we could have had Deshaun Watson when we drafted Mitchell
yeah. Well,
Trubisky second.
see, I'm gonna say this because the people in that locker room in the Texans they like Deshaun Watson. He was good in the locker room. So if this whole drama with him and the lawsuits works out so he can still play in the NFL, even though it could be true, I'm not
Hmm.
gonna say it is true because it's all allegations, but even though it could be true, um, we want it's still football. It
Hmm.
depends on how you play on the field and how you act in the locker room. So if I wouldn't mind trading for him if he could play on that high level that he does,
Yeah.
and be that great influence in that locker room.
I feel that, but on like a different aspect. Like there's so many allegations. It's too risky, and especially when you think about Virginia McCaskey, like the owner. She's a huge feminist. She even took the Honey Bears.
Yeah,
The Honey Bears were gone because she thought that they were displaying a poor image of women. So I don't see her being her. I don't see that they trade for Deshaun Watson. Obviously, he's a great player. I think that he's the third best quarterback in the league. I think that this is all just a pipe dream. I don't think that it's gonna happen. But until his stuff blows over, which like may never blow over because names keep
dude,
coming
it's
out.
so much. It's I mean over 20 allegations, and these are like heavy cases too
This is
from like what I've
absurd.
been reading. So I could honestly see him not playing in the NFL at all
Mhm.
anymore if almost all these allegations are true. I mean these are very severe allegations.
Especially, and they like to say oh, Big Ben is still in the league, but this was a completely different climate politically when we think about that, and that was not even on scale to the amount of allegations that there are now.
Yeah.
Big Ben had one or two. uh, Deshaun Watson has 20 plus. It's a terrible situation, and I think that for now the Bears should steer clear completely of Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Deshaun Watson should steer clear from all the massage parlors down south. So let's move on to Teddy Bridgewater. What do you think about him?
Teddy, you know what's funny? Thinking a year ago, I was like, oh, Teddy, Teddy was so good with the Saints. He had a 5-0 start. Teddy was great. I want him starting for the Chicago Bears. But looking at him in Carolina, he wasn't that great. He didn't have a stellar season. You could attribute this to CMC or Christian McCaffrey being out for most of the season. He only played about 3 games. You could attribute this to that as he's their best offensive player, but he didn't have a great year. There were times where he would get benched for PJ Walker, who was the best player in the XFL. But I think that you see with Teddy Bridgewater, they recently traded for Sam Darnold, which is pretty crazy that I didn't think that they were the team that was going to do it, knowing that they have Teddy Bridgewater. I think Teddy Bridgewater's contract is not that great. I don't think that he's a $21 million player because it was 3 years, $63 million. I don't think that he's that $20 million quarterback. So I personally do not like a trade for Teddy Bridgewater, even with the cap hit that the Panthers would take. But what do you think?
I think everyone knew that it was going to be overpay for whoever's going to get Teddy Bridgewater last year. So yeah, he does have a high cap hit. Teddy Bridgewater, he has decent accuracy. He learned a lot from Drew Brees, but he's just not as great as we thought he was gonna be. He didn't really perform that well, like you said, in Carolina. He does have to compete with Sam Darnold. I think with them over there, that's kind of like the situation here where
The
Mitchell
same
Trubisky
tier
has that.
player.
Yeah, Mitchell Trubisky is athletic. Sam Darnold's athletic. Nick Foles can throw decently accurate, and Teddy Bridgewater can throw decently accurate. So I think that they're gonna have their whole QB carousel like we did. Hopefully we don't trade for Teddy Bridgewater. I don't think he's gonna be our future. I don't think he's gonna help out with anything. I think he's gonna cost too much. We should just let him stay in Carolina or whoever wants to take him.
Agreed. All right, now we have to talk about the Russ saga. This has
Uh,
so many parts, so many moving parts, and it's cruel to be a Bears fan because you hope that we're gonna get a quarterback, and especially with what Russ did. We know that last year the Seahawks they hadn't for the first half of the season Russ was having MVP chance. He had
yeah.
threw 28 touchdowns. He had not that many interceptions. MVP Russ was for the first 8 weeks of the season, and then for the last 8 weeks, defenses started to figure them out. Their offensive game plan was not working. You saw that they fired their offensive coordinator it wasn't trouble in paradise. There was trouble in paradise. And even going into the playoff game when they played the Los Angeles Rams, you saw that there was animosity between some of the players. You saw that Russ and DK were arguing. You saw DK arguing that he wasn't getting the ball enough. And then right after that play, you know that Russ throws an interception on a wide receiver screen. The offense, he wasn't happy with it, and especially right after. Allegedly, there was a meeting to discuss offensive game plan for next year, and Russell Wilson went in and he gave in his 2 cents, and they didn't listen to him. And right after, he went to his agent and he gave him a list of teams, and he said, "I want to go to either the New Orleans Saints, Dallas Cowboys, Oakland Raiders, or the Chicago Bears." And when you look at all those situations, Raiders, they have Derek Carr. The Cowboys, who re-signed Dak. So those two are out. You look at the New Orleans Saints. The Saints were in cap hell. They could not afford anything. So they're pretty much out of the question. So the only possible team left was the Chicago Bears. And to just think that an elite quarterback would want to come to a city like Chicago, who's infamous for not having great quarterback play, was great. But it all turned out to be a pipe dream, which was really sad. And there's more developing. But what do you think about the situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think all Bears fans had just serotonin going through their brains. I mean, we were all just excited when he said he was thinking about joining the Chicago Bears. People were saying he was the best Bears quarterback we've ever had just by him saying that he wanted to be with us. And honestly, I believe that's kind of true. I mean, with the quarterback history that we have. But yeah, I mean, it is just a dream. We're not gonna get Russ. He did say that he's gonna stay with Seattle to his teammates. He did have his problems over there, but I'm not sure him coming with to Matt Nagy would really solve the problem. I
Mm-hmm.
do wish we could have had him. We did offer in a trade for him, but they didn't accept. We did go on an emotional roller coaster, and it was just up and down. One day Russ would be like, I enjoy being with Seattle." Next day he'd be like, "I want out of Seattle. Take me to this other team." And it did look like Chicago Bears would, if he were to leave, Chicago Bears were to get him because I mean all those other teams had quarterbacks, but I mean Russ still. We don't have a quarterback, and we could still trade for Russ. We have defensive pieces. We have offensive pieces if we were to want to trade A-Rob since he's franchise tagged. Um, but I mean, it's just a dream. I wish we could have got him. I wish we have him, but I mean, that's just like me saying I wish I had Aaron Rodgers or I wish
Mm-hmm.
I had
Yeah.
these other good quarterbacks. It's just rumors and it's not gonna happen.
Mm-hmm. But you mentioned that we offered them a trade. I wanted to know what you thought about that because allegedly it was 3 firsts, a third, and then Pace handed them a list of players, and he said this was before the Khalil Mack restructure. I know people are saying Khalil Mack wasn't offered; he was restructured. I believe that he offered this right before. There were so many players. There was Kyle Fuller, who was eventually cut, Akeem Hicks, Khalil Mack. There were several players on the defense that were offered and 3 firsts as well as a third. What do you think about that? Do you think that that would have crippled the team, or do you think that this would have made us an insane team?
I think this would have made us a better team because I mean, when you look at the really good teams, what's the starting foundation that they got is a quarterback, and we've never had a quarterback in our history. And if we were ever to get an opportunity to get a good quarterback, I think we should hop on that. People are saying, "Oh, we could cripple our defense, but we still have defensive pieces in our backfield." If we were to trade Mack, Akeem Hicks, and Fuller, we still have Roquan Smith and Jalen Johnson, who are very young for us, and Bilal Nichols is starting to do really well for us. And we just need a trade for a couple more defensive pieces. I mean, Ryan Pace can hit defensive pieces in the later rounds. We'll talk about that more in the next podcast when we talk about the draft. But I really don't think it would have crippled the team. We need a very good offense. If we were to get a very good offense, which Russ could provide, we can go farther uh, with Russ while missing those defensive pieces than without Russ.
Of course.
So I would have rather had him, but I mean it's still a pipe dream. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I would have rather had him, but I don't know if that price was too much to pay. When you think of, I saw this graph on elite quarterback play after being traded, and you saw that we've done this before. We traded for Jay Cutler when he wasn't obviously he wasn't an elite established quarterback like Russell Wilson was, but I think that giving up that much would have low key crippled the team. When you think about we traded Khalil Mack or traded for Khalil Mack, we gave up 2 firsts. Not having 2 firsts is insane for a team. You need to have those first round picks because they turn into serious players for the team. I think that to take on the contract as well as to pay that would have been a little bit too much, and it kind of makes me question what was going through the heads of the McCaskies as they allowed him to offer this trade. I know that this would have made us an instant playoff team because we have that elite defense, and our offense would be elite. And it is a pipe dream. I want Russ. I maybe this is a possibility that next year, come next year, there's some trouble in paradise again. But overall, this was pretty much just a pipe dream, and we will not be having an elite quarterback under center this year.
I mean, I wanna mention that point where you talked about picks. Is that for us? When have we hit first
Oh,
round
for us,
picks? Yeah,
when you think about it,
we don't really hit on first round picks. And also, if we were to get Russ, those first round picks are practically like second round because we're gonna probably make it deep in the playoffs
that's
if we were
true.
to have Russ. So I mean, those first round picks are picks aren't really much unless you're like very high in the rounds. We usually hit more in later rounds anyway. So I would have been very willing to just give up those first three first round picks.
I can understand that part as well. That's what kind of sways me back and forth when you think about the first round picks that we've had. Leonard Floyd was not a hit because he ended up going to a different team. We didn't take up his 5th year option. You think Roquan was obviously a hit.
Roquan was hit.
Great player.
Kevin White.
Trubisky, bust. Not a hit as well.
Kevin
Uh,
White.
oh, Kevin White. Oh God,
And
Kevin
then we
White.
had
What is a level below bust? Because that is Kevin White.
yeah Kevin White. I mean, it was just unfortunate because of injuries for him, but I mean, it just didn't. It was a complete bust.
Hmm.
One of the worst picks in NFL history, to be honest. He just really didn't do anything for us, and he was a high round pick. Um, and then we had Gabe Creamy earlier in the 2010s, and he wasn't really good for us either.
Hmm.
So we don't really hit on that first round. So I don't mind giving up those first round picks, especially for a player that can convert those first round picks to very low first round picks, so they could be technically like high second round picks. So yeah, I really don't mind.
All right. So now that we've talked about the QB carousel, we've talked about the possible quarterbacks for next year and going forward. We should definitely talk about the other positions that need to be filled. First, let's focus on safety. I know that we have our free safety in Eddie Jackson. We extended him for a couple years, so we have him later down the line. But Deshaun Gibson is now a free agent. Do you think that we should re-sign him or go a different way? What do you think?
Honestly, Deshaun Gibson was well with us. I think we should re-sign Deshaun Gibson for cheap. I don't see another team going for him right now. We can still re-sign him. Deshaun Gibson was very solid for us in the strong safety position. I think if we were to get him and then we could draft maybe in the later rounds a safety to teach him how to play in that strong safety position to pair up with Eddie Jackson well, it'd be good. I mean, we have Sean Desai coming back in, so obviously we have to trust his choice and whoever he wants in strong safety. But we saw last year, Deshaun Gibson was a solid choice for us. I think we should re-sign him if we can. But I mean, there's other options. But honestly, I think he's our best option for strong safety for what we can do for right now.
Of course, him knowing the system from playing with us last year. I see there's a couple of safety free agents on the market. You saw that the one that I really wanted was Keanu Neal, who got snatched by the Cowboys. But there's players like Kenny Vaccaro. There's some decent players out there, but I think that relating to the system, Deshaun Gibson, and as well as price, Deshaun Gibson would
Yeah.
not cost a whole lot. I think that would be great for the team.
I mean, when you also think of Kenny Vaccaro, he's also like he's 30 years old as well. He had 83 tackles, 5 passes deflected, and he played for the Titans. So I mean, when you look at their backfield, it was horrible. So I mean, I don't know how much better. I don't think he would be even better than Deshaun Gibson. I think Deshaun Gibson's better, and for the price, he would be better. So I think we should resign Deshaun Gibson.
Agreed. Now for wide receiver, we kind of solved it, not very much solved this earlier today, but free agency wise, we solved it when we got Marquise Goodwin.
Yeah,
I think that he'll be probably he's currently wide receiver 4 behind Anthony Miller, but Anthony Miller is probably soon to be traded. So I would go more on along the lines of wide receiver 3 altogether.
yeah. So for wide receivers, I mean, of course, we could have had like there's Antonio Brown in free agency, there's Golden Tate in free agency, but I mean, we solved our wide receiver thing for right now. Marquise Goodwin would probably be wide receiver 3. We could, if I mean, if Golden Tate wants to come to us for cheap, I wouldn't mind having him. I mean, he's a solid receiver for depth too. He can be our wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4. Obviously, we still have Riley Ridley, who has shown some flashes during the season, but of course, Matt Nagy seems like he hates him for some reason, as he doesn't like to play him. But I think for wide receiver, we're kind of solved with the Marquise Goodwin thing. So we'll see what happens with that. Of course, I hope Anthony Miller gets traded now, since we talked about it before. I don't think it'll be very good if we keep him. So moving on from that, I want to see what you want to talk about with special teams, since we're missing the kick return now that Cordero Patterson has left us.
I don't know what we're gonna do at that position. I think that either if Anthony Miller stays, he'll help with special teams because you saw that he was the punt returner last year for a little bit. I think that we have some players. I mean, we had Dwayne Harris last year, who was okay. You have Cohen coming back this year after his ACL tear. I don't know how much of the load that he's going to take after suffering such a great injury and recovering, but I think that we most likely address this later on in the draft, hopefully. But what
Yeah,
do you think?
I think honestly, if we do trade Anthony Miller, I think most likely what's going to happen is we're going to probably put Cohen in that kick returning position, and we're probably just going to have to ease his load in the offense. I mean, we did get Damian Williams, so that's going to help him a lot during the carries. But Cohen is definitely just a strong returner for us, so we can put him for right now, unless we do address it in the draft. We can address it in the later rounds, just get return specialist. But I mean, Messi Cordell is pretty big in that kick return, but we can always fill in a player for that now that we got Cohen back.
Agreed. Now to talk about the offensive line, we've seen a couple of players that are on the market, such as Alejandro Villanueva. We've seen the Chiefs recently cut offensive tackle Eric Fisher. He was the number one pick a couple of years ago. You see Mitchell Schwartz. I think that you even see trading opportunities. We saw that Orlando Brown, who was with the Ravens. He was I think what was the draft that he was in 2017, 2016. He's very
Yep.
young. He's young, and he was put into the tackle role because of Ronnie Stanley's injury, and he was great. I mean, the team
Yep.
was the best rushing team in the league, statistically all time actually. And so he wanted to trade because he wanted to play in the tackle position for another team. So you've seen so many trade hypotheticals for him. I think that if we can not give up too much because he's of less importance to them. Obviously, he's less of a role player for them than he would be for us. If
Yeah.
we can get a steal for him, or if we can give up not too much for him, then I think that he would be great for the line.
Yeah, I think Orlando Brown would be solid if we don't give up too much. But obviously, like you said, there is Mitchell Schwartz and there's Eric Fisher and Alejandro Villanueva. Though I mean, those are day one starters for the offensive line. They'd be solid for us if we were to pick them up for free agency. We don't really need to trade for Orlando Brown. We can pick those up. I would like to pick up Mitchell Schwartz if we can. I mean, he is a day one starter. He had that injury, but I mean, he came back. He's a solid offensive lineman. Eric Fisher is a solid offensive lineman. Alejandro Villanueva is a solid offensive lineman. So yeah, we can pick those guys up for free agency if we have the cap. They're not asking too much. But we definitely should look into the offensive line, as it was a huge problem for us last season. So yeah,
Of course, we gotta address it through free agency or through the draft, and who knows what'll happen. But for the next position, I think this is of less concern than the others. Cornerback. Through free agency, as we've seen that we've signed Desmond Trufant to a one-year deal. You see that there's a couple of other cornerbacks in the free market, like Richard Sherman, who's obviously one of the best all time.
probably
Uh,
couldn't have cost as much as Fuller would if we were to sign him. So
Probably around that, like around that range, probably about 8 to 10 million a year. You see Bashad Breeland, you see Casey Hayward Jr. Of the Chargers. I think that our for the short term, we're solved, but we can definitely address this. I'd much rather that we address this during the draft.
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we do have our cornerback one, cornerback two right now. We need to figure out that nickelback position. Obviously, we hope that Artie Burns might be able to get in there. Can the builder can get in there, or we can figure it out in the draft. So we'll see what happens during the draft and so on.
All right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to the Shy Bears Blitz podcast. Stay tuned. Next week, we've got a great podcast for you. We're going to be talking about the 2020 draft, grading all the players from that. We're going to be looking at prospects for the 2021 draft. It's going to be a great episode for you guys. Please follow us on all social medias at Shy Bears Blitz. Please subscribe to our YouTube and all of our podcasts on Apple, Google Play, and Spotify. Thank you for listening, and take care.
Take care, guys.